Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Center for University Research Lecture. Our topic for today is writing a winning introduction and methodology section. This will help you enhance the overall quality of your research paper. So just a few reminders to all attendees, please ensure that you have accomplished the evaluation form to receive your certificate. We will send the link before the lecture ends. Please also make sure that your microphones are on mute unless you are recognized to speak. Feel free to use the chat box if you have questions. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge our participants from University of Eastern Philippines, DepEd Camarines Norte, NEUST, National University, San Sebastian College Recoletos Graduate School of Law, City College of Tagaytay, NU MOA, Don Bosco Technical Institute of Makati, PCU Dasma Dominican College of Santa Rosa, Laguna, Rizal Technological University, Westmead International School, Centro Escolar University of Malolos, Barawen Community College, Taguig City University, Iloilo State University of Fisheries, Science and Technology, Balmore Christian School, and University of Antique. And of course, UMAC attendees, welcome to our research lecture. So let us start our program. It's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished lecturer for today's research lecture. Our esteemed speaker is a highly accomplished individual with an impressive academic and professional background. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree from the Australian Catholic University, showcasing their commitment to academic excellence and research. In recognition of his outstanding leadership abilities, he was awarded the prestigious Australian Leadership Awards scholarship. His expertise extends beyond academia, as he had the privilege of being an academic visitor at the Oxford University through the help of the Aged Fellowship. Additionally, he obtained a postgraduate diploma in gerontology and geriatrics from the University of Malta, with master's in public management from the Development Academy of the Philippines, attained as a Ramon Magsaysay Scholar. Our lecturer possesses a comprehensive understanding of management and development in the public sector. He completed his undergraduate studies with a bachelor's degree in social work from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, establishing a strong foundation in social sciences. Adding to his impressive portfolio, our speaker serves as the CEO of Philippine Consortium Incorporated, showcasing his practical experience and leadership in the field. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Nicamil Sanchez.
Thank you very much for the very kind introduction, Mark. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Center for University Research of the University of Makati for hosting this research colloquium, and to the management of the University of Makati. First is let's rock and roll. So we also would like to acknowledge our director of the CUR, Director Rante, for heading this activity. And first, let's rock and roll. So I think, Mark, you have there's participants that you have not mentioned, so we will acknowledge them after this presentation. So first is we do this training or this research seminar, and we would expect something from you. So first is, can you type in the chat box at least 6 keywords of your research? I know all of you are researchers, right? In the university, always remember the 3 pillars: teaching, extension, and research and applications. So first is, can you type in the names of your universities that Mark have not mentioned? And then second expectation is, can you type in at least 6 keywords of your research or any research project, research interest, or research expertise that you have? For example, for today's lecture, my 6 keywords are introduction, methodology, qualitative, What else? Writing a good introduction or looking at an analysis. So basically, that's my 6 keywords about my research presentation. So I would like to mention it again. My 6 keywords for this presentation is first is introduction, the literature review, the methodology, the analysis, conclusion, and writing a good thesis or thesis. Okay. Remember, in every research project that you have, you start looking at what are the main keywords of my proposed study or my research. First, in submitting a journal, they will always ask you what are the keywords of your proposed studies. Okay. So one expectation for you, for those who are in the Zoom right now, is please type in the 6 keywords of your research study and before I start my formal presentation. So just write the 6 keywords. Okay. So some are writing in the chat box. Please do write it in the chat box. And secondly, is you could ask question anytime if you wanted to ask questions. Thirdly is this research seminar is we would expect something from you guys. So it's a two-way process while we're doing this presentation. Okay, write 6 keywords about your research topic. Put it in the chat box. Okay, so each participant must write 6 keywords about your proposed topic. Got it? So we're done with my expectation. According to Shakespeare, expectation is the root of all heartache. So I will be clear with my expectations. 6 keywords or not. Okay, got it. So Mark, is there anyone who have written the keywords of their proposed studies here? Yes. So
Yes, we
one
do have
is
some.
change management. Mark, can you
Change
read one or
management.
two?
Yeah, sure. From Prof. Lorna Esquivel of UMAC, change management, innovative practices, systemic change, senior high school program, University of Makati, retrospective study.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Any more?
That's
From other universities. We have from
yeah.
Taiwan. Mark.
We have from Chinan University. It's phenomenology, comparative education, analysis, ethics, empirical, cross-cultural. And we also have from Survey Medinilla, online learning, teaching presence, social presence, cognitive presence, students evaluation, interactions, teaching performance.
Okay. Thank you for those who have typing the keywords of the research project. And then second, assigned task is always look at your keywords. Why? Because this will be the focus of your research project, as well as this will be the focus of your research expertise. If they talk about change management, they will certainly look for your surname for your studies. If they will talk about mixed method qualitative, that's my area of expertise. So the keywords that you have written can be your research expertise. Not only it will identify the keywords of your research project. In other words, in layman's term, diyan iikot ang buhay mo bilang isang mananaliksik. Okay, this will be the focus of your academic life as a researcher. Those keywords in your research projects. Okay, so let's start and let's rock and roll. So we're done with the first task. So always remember, please type in your assigned task. Type in 6 keywords about your proposed study. We will not give you the certificate without sending us the 6 keywords. Okay. So I'll be sharing my screen. So, do you want to acknowledge while I'm doing and sharing my screen, Mark? Do you want to acknowledge all the participants from other
Yes,
universities
yes, sir.
that are present right now?
We would like to acknowledge our participants from National Chinan University in Taiwan, Lorma Colleges, Cavite State University. And also from Armed Forces of the Philippines, Reserve Command. Thank you for joining us. And speaking of AFP, we would like to invite everyone on June 15. We have a research colloquium entitled Marawi Siege Soldiers Retrospective at the HPSB Multimedia Room 507. It's going to be held at exactly 1:30 p.m. You may check our FB page. It's UMac Center for University Research for the registration link. We will post the registration link in within this day. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sir Mark. Again, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our director, Director Dante of the CUR University of Makati. Okay, so let's start our lecture, and then always remember that you could ask any questions. So Mark will be helping us in facilitating this seminar. So how to write a winning introduction? Always remember, look at yourself as a seller. You want to sell an idea, right? If you want to sell an idea, you need to capture your audience. Take note of that. Always remember that your reader are not an expert on the topic. Okay? So those reading your article, they are not expert in it. Okay? Maybe only one or two of your advisors. But most or majority of those who will be reading your research paper are not an expert on it. Second is the importance of having an overview or introduction. Always remember, you need to ask yourself the what and the why question. What and the why if you're writing the introduction. Okay? Identify your research topic. The importance of having those keywords, having those mind map will help you a lot. And always remember, you need to choose a topic that could have a significant contribution to your organization or to the body of knowledge or to your to the professional development. Okay? So if you're doing a PhD, for example, in education, it's important that your topic will be related to education. What will be the main contribution of your topic in the field of education? Okay. There are cases that you do PhD or do masters without any relation at all in area. Okay? So, for example, in my field, I did a study or dissertation in aging. So I tried to connect it with social work practice. So I look into the relative social work practice. So always remember that your PhD should have a significant contribution to your field. Okay. The importance of scope and limitations, because it's one way to know whether you have in-depth knowledge of the literatures of the topic and in your study. So you need to identify what are the scope and limitations of the study. Always take note. Okay. One of the people researchers just put in on limited funds, limited time. No, you need to go in depth. Maybe the limitations of the study is just I did a qualitative methodology. So you cannot generalize my findings. I did a mixed method study, but I forgot a certain group of Senior, for example, senior citizens. The limitations, I have not interviewed those who are oldest old or 80 and above. So you need to go in depth in terms of identifying your scope and limitations. Okay, because your study cannot answer everything. It's just one part, a small part of the whole aspect of change management. We talk about change management. You need to know what kind or what specific area in change management you wanted to study, for example. Okay? And always remember when writing those dissertations, you need to engage your reader. You need to engage my reader. So the most important thing is you have a good introduction. The first paragraph, you give everything for you to engage your reader about your topic. Ang important is yung mga first page ng topic niyo, yung master's per page. Pag binasa nila to, they will be interested in reading more, knowing more, in looking at how did you address the research problems that you have. Okay, so always remember, give amount time, and always remember that you need to have a very engaging introduction, especially the first and the second paragraph of your introduction section. So as we all know, alam niyo na to you have the opening section, the study background, research problem, questions, significance, limitations, and outline. So I will not bore you with that, and let's go to the specifics. I want specifics. Every now and then, if you're doing or writing a paper, you look into the specific detail. Okay? And you, in the opening section, always provide a brief overview. Always remember in my paper, always provide chapter introduction. In the first around, I'll do a chapter introduction around 2 paragraphs. Okay, I have a chapter conclusion at the end of the chapter. It's just around 2 to 3 paragraphs. Then I'll try to connect my chapter conclusion to the next chapter. What will be the next chapter? I'll try to give it a 1 to 2 sentences. Okay. As I mentioned, you need to sell your research idea. Why are you doing this topic? You need to sell it. You're the primary market. You're the expert. At the same time, you need to market your idea. Why do you want to do this study? Okay. And every time you market your idea, make sure you have an in-depth knowledge of the literature. Okay. And why, how your research could address those gaps, and how your research could contribute to knowledge. It's very important. Introduce the overall field of your topic. If we talk about change management is that look at the main authors of change management. Okay. And then after that, you introduce the research problem. The important thing, what are the problems that you wanted to address? What are the main goals, or what will be the main objectives of your topic? So you could have an overarching objectives, general objectives, and you could have specific objectives. Okay. There are cases that if it is qualitative, especially grounded theory, it's a general objective, or it depends whether you're doing a thematic in a qualitative study. In a quantitative study, you have the hypothesis, right? You wanted to test out the significant difference of male and female in the attainment of well-being among older persons or among students. At the end of the day, you need to have an overview of the topic area that you're doing. Overview. Okay. In terms of overview, I would suggest you provide a brief history and an outline of research findings. I do outline especially what are the first significant study about the topic, about my proposed topic. Based on 1968 study, there's the first study on this topic, cite the author. Okay. And then you could do the brief history outlining what happened after 1960. There's a kind of study after 5 years. So you wanted to share with your reader the brief history of your proposed topic from different timeline and different topic. What are the important concepts? So ask the question what? What are the important concepts, features, which is studies about the topic? We focus on the what questions. So always remember, either not an expert. So explain everything that is not common knowledge. Okay, 1 feet pola. Okay, one of the main challenge for us, we try to explain general knowledge or common knowledge. Okay? But in a research, we wanted to know specific uh, data. We wanted to know specific research findings that is not common knowledge. Okay? We tend to interpret common knowledge. So we need to distinguish what are the common knowledge and what are the research find, what are the data or the knowledge coming from the research. Because even in references, if it is common knowledge, you don't need to cite it for it's common knowledge of it. The important thing of narrowing the focus and highlight the research problem. Only you narrow the focus and highlight the research. So always remember, if you're identifying, writing your research problem, don't be too broad or general. Make sure that you could have a 1 or 2 sentence about your research problem. So to investigate and evaluate. Okay? So that's one of the examples of writing. Make it a straightforward sentence for your research problem. Need to answer questions or gaps in the literature. So it's really important that you dig deep on the literature about the topic that you're doing. Always remember that. Don't go to your supervisor and discuss a certain research problem without without reading a number of studies about it. Okay? Nagkukwentuhan lang kayo nun. You're just wasting the time of your supervisor. So make sure you have read the literatures about your proposed topic. Ano magiging basis ko in looking at the literature? Look at the keywords that you have explored or you have identified. Okay, for example, change management, about gusto ko makuha yung mga change management and that did a study on change management using qualitative methodology. So ita-type na yun sa e-library nyo. Yun lang ang focus ko. Qualitative studies that did that have studied using qualitative methodology in the topic ng change management. Okay. What's already know or most common findings? What are the common findings among those literature? Okay, for example, change management really is the importance of having good leaders. Why is it important to fill this gap? So you need to ask yourself, is my research will be good enough to fill the gaps of the literature? Okay. So even myself, would always ask the literature. I will always ask, just like talking to a wall. Is my research could address these gaps of the gaps of the literature that I've identified? Second, always remember that in identifying gaps, you will identify numerous gaps. So always point on specific on the gaps you wanted to identify. Usually you could hear, wala pang sir, wala pang study about, there's no study about this in the Philippines. So what? So what about this social pension that you wanted to do? Eh sir, malaki po problema po yung kahirapan. So what aspect? Napaka-broad yung topic. So usually kapag dinidiscuss ko sa student mo, they will give you a broad topic. Okay? I will always say na you need to deconstruct those words that you wanted to do. Okay? What are you going to do in your research problem? Always clearly state your research aims or aims. What are you aiming to achieve in your research proposal? Have you stated your specific context? So my context is I'm just gonna conduct a study in this area. So the classification, they belong to the fifth class municipalities, or they belong to the first class municipalities or cities. And then you need to ask yourself, high level what? What do you want to contribute about your okay? You need to ask yourself, am I doing a paper that would contribute to the professional development, knowledge, skills, or development of or addressing gaps of the studies that I wanted to do? So always remember, in coming up with an objective, alam mo sinasabi ko every now and then in the title, just give it 12 words. Okay? In the objectives, they wanted to put in a lot of variables in just one sentence. So if you read the sentence, even you as a researcher could not explain it clearly because you wanted to put in all keywords that you have identified in just one main broad aim. Always remember, I would suggest in your one main broad aim, just put in the number one keywords about or the main topic of your research. And it will also include some keywords, maybe in the research aims that you wanted to do. Because your article and your paper will go around those keywords that you have identified earlier. Kaya napaka-importante that you need to submit your keywords. Okay? Nagsubmit na ba lahat? O 13 pala? So you have more than 100 participants, but only 13 have submitted the keywords. Always remember, we work on a give and take relationship. I want you to type in your keywords. Okay, why? Because every now and then, if you will watch and attend our lecture, I want you to have those takeaways. Okay, we work on output oriented. Okay, so always remember those keywords. So please type in your keywords. So there's Mark, na kailangan na keywords dito?
Um, 1, 2, 3.
Why I'm insisting on that? Because in the introduction section, in the literature review, in your research paper, dyan iikot ang buhay nyo or ang paper nyo doon sa mga keywords.
So we have 15.
15. Yeah. Thank you for those 15 participants. Okay, always remember that. Why? Because every now and then, okay, one of the main hurdle of postgrad students is writing the because I would tell my students or my colleagues, you need to write it every night. It's a practice of writing a paper, an introduction, your methodology, your conclusion. So basically, there are cases, don't give comments or inputs to your supervisor, to your students based on common knowledge. Always talk about what's the research, what's this study is telling us, what's this author is telling us. One of the people, if you're discussing with your students, or even you as a students, you can discuss common knowledge all the time. And sometimes you put in new variables, new keywords. Kaya that's the main reason humahaba yung paper niyo. Tumatagal kayo bilang postgrad. So I'm also suggesting do a mind map. So make sure that mind map has been approved by your supervisor and by your critic. It's very important because that will be the focus of your study. Those mind map, which include those keywords that you have identified right now. Third is the importance of having a specific actionable objectives. What do you want to do with your study? What are the methodology that you're using? Alam mo, there are cases, you're putting in methodology. For example, I'm doing a mixed method, but your research problem can be answered by a qualitative study. Why mixed method? Okay. Why quantitative study, but your paper or your research problem could be answered by a qualitative study? Now you tell me that, sir, I hate doing qualitative data, or sir, I'm not good in numbers, so I might be doing a qualitative methodology. It's just like singing or dancing. Na nauuna yung pagkanta mo sa beat or nauuna yung paa mo sa sayaw. You need to go to this and that. Okay? Be jive with the music while you're dancing or singing, or compared to as a researcher, okay? It's a process. Okay? There are cases that students will discuss methodology, but they have not fully identified the research problem. Okay? You need to break down your research. There are cases na you will break down your research in 7, more than 5. I would suggest, suggestion ko lang if you have those specific research aims, just don't make it above 4 or 5. Just don't make it above 5. Just make it 4 or something. Make sure those research aims will include the keywords that you have identified. Because there are keywords that you could put it in one research aim, there are keywords that could put it in one, the keywords you put it in one research aim. So always be mindful of it, okay? There are cases na ilalagay mo pa yung research to know the number of students in this class. To identify, it's not, for me, it's not, it should not be part of the research aim. It could be part of the background. It's not the main aims of the study that could contribute to the gaps of the literature. Okay. So always remember, for those academics and researchers right here, your engagement with our students is the main goal really is for our students to publish, for our students to present this their paper in a conference. That nakakalungkot lang na kapag pumunta ka sa ibang sa mga libraries natin. Magaganda yung studies, pero pag nakita mo yung methodology, maling methodology yung ginawa. And then hindi nagabayan ng maayos yung logical sequence. Kasi napaka-importante, alam niyo, yung primary data gathering. Why does academics from other countries will go here to do research? Why? Because it will be difficult to get ethical clearance in your country because of the ethics. Second, there's a lot of gaps here in the Philippines, and you could do primary data gathering. That will be our advantage. Okay? Because in other countries, highly saturated na, especially in, for example, in Manila, highly saturated na yung smoky areas, Payatas, highly saturated na yung Smoky Mountain. There's a lot of studies about that. So that the advantage will be yung academics natin in the provinces or those soldiers in the field with access to information, primary data. Okay? Or those universities na in the rural areas, rural provinces, because they have a lot of subjects. Okay? So that's an important thing kasi you need to have a good aim, research aims that will benefit your society, your community, and your country. For example, right now in CUR, our main focus are all the focus of our research is all challenges of urban communities, or sorry, of urban cities. So that's a focus because we wanted to have more. We wanted to have not only focus our resources, our strengths, our research projects, because that's one way that we could help our community. Because we're in a city environment. Always remember that your research question should be down to earth. It should directly answer your objectives. Okay? Ang ginagawa ko siya, lagyan mo ng line. Continuing line, is this research question 1 could answer my objective? Or this research question 2 can answer my objective 1 and 2? Okay? Put them in your conclusions. Because there will be a connection in the conclusion. Always remember in chapter 1, introduction, This will be coming from your secondary data, secondary literature. Chapter 2, you have methodology. Sa article lang naman, chapter 1, introduction, chapter 2, methodology, chapter 3, findings and conclusion, right? Chapter 1 and 2, secondary data, chapter 3, findings, come if you have a primary data, okay? Chapter 4 is how did you address the gaps of the literature and how the findings of your research project contributes in developing the knowledge and writing a journal article. Okay. In your research questions, always pilot test your research questions. If you observe or if you're doing qualitative study, mas marami pa yung sinasabi ng interviewer mo kaysa doon sa mga response pag transcribe. It's a big no-no. You need to have, kaya ka nag-interview, you wanted to get more from your respondents, not you sharing something about the topic, because that will lead to biases. In a quantitative survey naman, you wanted to do your own scale without the benefit of a qualitative study. Develop tayo ng scale. From this one, strongly agree, agree, and not agree. So what's the purpose of doing this scale? And then secondly, to ask yourself whether I could adopt a scale with a higher validity and reliability from other studies. Ang ginagawa kasi na minsan, pag-develop ka na lang ng indicator directly, gagawan mo na siya ng survey, it's wrong. A survey tool should be, the first study should be a qualitative because that will be the basis of your survey. Mali sa, minsan may makikita ka na lang, develop na lang ng survey without the basis of qualitative study, without looking at the validity and reliability. And nag-develop ka ng survey, kinuha mo na yung patsi-patsi ng questions from different survey. It's wrong. It's unethical. And then, or you just copy a survey from other studies and you didn't ask permission, plagiarism yun. So always remember that. Okay? I think the important thing for academics right now is that yung integrity, trustworthiness natin, at the end of the day, mahirap ma-questions in mga studies natin. So always make sure that you ask permission for those who wanted to adopt a certain research questions or skills that will be part of your study. Always remember to limit your research questions to a certain community organization in a time period in the program. Okay? How it may benefit your professional community. Always ask them, look, if your focus is management, focus on how your study can contribute in developing new knowledge about management. Okay? How your research may contribute. How it will fill the gaps in the literature. Okay? Ang challenge mo, you just describe the literature. Okay? You need to argue with the literature. There are cases that you just read the literature and you will agree about the findings 100%. You will not argue it anymore. You're just describing it. You need to argue with the literature. That's in-depth literature review. You need to argue whether they've done good, they've chosen the right methodology, the number of respondents. You need to identify the author's assertion versus what's coming from the data. So sasabihin mo, there's no connection between the author's conclusion and the findings from the survey or from the qualitative study. And you could tell them that, look, you only interviewed 5 or 6 and below 10. How can you support a certain theory given those numbers? Okay, so na-saturate mo na ba lahat? Or are you making conclusion to those oldest old, but you've interviewed is this around 60 to 70 years old? Okay. The importance of knowledge creation. So always remember, every research project that you will be doing, or every research project that you will be the main supervisor, it's very important to create more knowledge. It's one way to publish. You cannot publish without a research. And then you'll tell me, I'm gonna publish doing a literature review or meta-analysis. So you need to review around 60 articles. The challenge with doing a meta-analysis is just you're not contributing your knowledge. You're just describing the theories, or you're just describing the findings of the different authors, whether there is emerging themes of these authors, what are the main topic, what are the main findings among the literatures, what are the main methodologies that they have used. Definitely, you're not. It will be difficult to publish if you're doing a meta-analysis. Kasi nga sinasabi ko, just publish in an international journal. Sell the value of your research in a specific actionable objectives. And the importance of knowledge creation. You have scope and limitations. So I must tell you that scope and limitation is not only I don't have budget for my study, limited time. No, dig deeper. How have you done? How many respondents, the methodology, the analysis of data. So think beyond the budget and think beyond the timeline of the research. Think about the ways your study is limited. Because why? It's better that for you to know the limitation scope of your study. Why? It's one way to inform the reader or inform us your in-depth knowledge about the literature, your expertise about the topic. So you could explain to us ano yung kulang, ano limitation ng paper ko. And you need to narrow the scope. I'm always telling you, in the introduction methodology, you need to choose the best methodology. It doesn't mean that you're good in math. You always do quantitative. No, you always go back to the research problem. And you need to ask yourself, am I choosing the right methodology for my research project? Or if I'm just choosing it for convenience, or my supervisor just suggested. Okay? There are cases, not all your supervisors are experts on the topic that you're proposing. Maybe they're expert on this main topic, but you wanted to look into a specific topic in this broad area. They're an expert on management. How can you say sure they're expert on management or leadership? Okay. How can you say so? They're an expert on security, national security. Tatanungin mo, have you published? What are your key publications? Have you presented in international conferences about this topic? Because national security is a very broad construct. What area in the national security that they're an expert in? Okay? So always look at that. There's a lot of opportunities for us. And the resources, the time and budget, and generalizability. No use hiding your limitations. Just tell them, look, this much study cannot be the same. The same will have to have the same findings from other countries or communities. This is only limited in this area, and specifically in, for example, in Muslim community, or in indigenous people community. And the findings of my study cannot be generalized in all the indigenous people community. Okay. The importance of having a roadmap, an outline. Kaya kayo nahihirapan, you do procrastination is you don't have an outline. Put an outline and then paraphrase it. Kaya mataas ang ano nyo sa Turnitin. Hindi kayo nagpa-paraphrase, kinaka-copy-paste. Try to paraphrase one paragraph in just one short sentence. You put the author. Okay. Second, always remember to have the roadmap. What are the outline of my study? Section 1, Section 1.1, Section 2.1. I use NDivo in doing my literature review. So I don't know if some of you have used this software. So it will help you analyze the literature. Always remember, how many of you are doing masters? Please, thumbs up. Thumbs up, masters, doing masters. Walang nagmamaster. Ayan, si Julian Apostol. So Ma'am Julian, always remember the 60 articles that you need to do. in your references. How many are doing PhDs here? 100 articles. Why? Because you'll be an expert on the topic. Always remember that. Only in the Philippines that you could see they will interview politicians. Oh, what can you say about this policy? They're just sharing their own thoughts and their own opinion. They will not cite any authors. They will not cite any studies. If they will cite any study, they will cite, oh, according to the Brazilian model, according to the Colombian model of this cash transfer, it is effective. No, it's different between the Philippine contexts. We wanted to know what are the findings, what are the studies here. They will tell you, oh, this is effective. Why? Because we interviewed one family, and in this family, two of their children have finished college with cum laude, with distinction. But they have 1,000 beneficiaries of this program. What happened to those 999 beneficiaries? Because you're just only chosen one. In your evaluation, then you're telling us it's effective, it's contributing. It's contributing on one family. But how, what's happened to those 999? So I need to argue with that. Okay? Yun nga sinasabi, always remember, if you cite anything that is not common knowledge based on research, cite the author. Second, you need to know your limitations and scope as a researcher. It doesn't doubt that you know everything. It's better to always ask for help, especially in structuring your outline. Have someone to look into whether, sir, tingin niyo may duplication ba dito? Tingin niyo tama yung methodology? Tingin niyo may logical sequence ba yung sinusunod ko? O tingin niyo naiintindihan niyo when you read it? It's one way to have a good outline and introduction in a paper. Okay? So always discuss the outline, not too detailed or something. So you know all of this? And the what and the why. What will be my methodology? The research design and why. How you're designing your study. You need to justify your research design. My research design, I'm doing qualitative, I'm doing thematic analysis, or I'm doing an interpretative phenomenological analysis. Okay, how are you collecting my data? You need to clearly explain, I'm collecting my data in this barangay. So how did I choose the respondents? I have certain requirements. So those respondents were family with 5 or more children, okay, and beneficiaries of this project. Thirdly is I'll choose what are the requirements of choosing. I'll just do availability sampling because I don't have a database of the people living this community. Okay. And how are you analyzing your data? In a quantitative study, you need to identify whether you're doing cross-tabulation, whether you're doing a chi-square, an analysis of variance, we're doing a regression. There are cases, natatawa na lang ako, I'm doing regression analysis. But if you see their proposal, it could be answered by a descriptive stat or a cross-tab or a descriptive stat because you're just describing the data. You're not doing it because you don't have an hypothesis to argue or you don't have an hypothesis of course. So basically, you need to be clear. For example, I'm doing a qualitative, I'm doing a thematic analysis. And then you need to look into how many studies have used qualitative methodology using thematic about your topic. Marami na pala. So I'm doing a qualitative analysis at the same time a quantitative, or I'm doing a exploratory mixed method design. Because most of the studies on this topic are mainly quantitative. So I wanted to do a qualitative study to address the gaps of the literature in terms of the methodology. So you need to look into that. Why you choose that? So I will ask you to write one page. Why are you choosing this methodology based on the methodology? Okay. So we've asked the students. In our cases, our research professors, advisors will just prescribe. Well, itong gawin ng methodology. Remember, always remember that the student should understand why the best methodology, they need to choose the best methodology to respond to the research. We're here to guide. At the end of the day, we're not here to prescribe at the end of the day because you're a research advisor. We're here to advise. Okay, and you need to provide them with the options. At the end of the day, they will be the one to choose whether this one is the best methodology. Okay, there are cases kasi na the students will choose you because you're good in stat. But there's research problem will be answerable by a quality where they will choose you because you're friends. No, at the end of the day, ikaw yung pipirma dun sa master's and PhD thesis niya. And then if it undergo blind reference review and then see your name there. Kaya there are cases na tumatanggi ako sa mga invitations sa akin because if you see that it's a master's paper and then you see the outcome. So, it will be difficult that kahit na wala ka ng sweldo, pag man lang ibigay because of that, because you know that the papers not being postgrad. And then you have some questions about how they have gathered the data, how they keep the data, how they analyze the data, how they collect the data. So, may mga experiences ko, yung pinapakitaan ka na kunwari nag-training sila pero ibang photos naman yung pinapakita. So that's a difficulty talaga. It's really trustworthy lang talaga. But at the end of the day, you could encounter that as a research professor, advisor. So always be cautious about that. So I would suggest I would not sign it. They could look for other research critic rather than put my name on that. Okay? But be mindful of it. Because especially if you're signing a PhD paper, okay? In other countries, in Australia, one of the requirements is you need to put your paper in an Australian thesis. What I mean is Australian database. Your paper, your dissertation can be accessed by the whole world online. That's the challenge in the Philippines. You still don't have those Philippine databases of thesis. Okay, it's one way to validate and verify whether the paper is a PhD or master worthy paper. Understanding of your research design. It will be my design. Okay, gawa ka ng visual. Ano yung design mo? Okay. Credibility of results. Always remember the importance of credibility of results. If you're doing qualitative, they will ask you about the validity and reliability, trustworthiness of your data, the quality in the report, especially in a qualitative. One of the main comment of a blind referee reviewer is the bias. How did you prevent biases if you've analyzed the data annually? Yun ang mga main comment. Kahit gaano kaganda yung qualitative paper, okay, it's prone to biases. But at the end of the day, I'll give you some trick. I use NBIVO 12, I use NBIVO 14 and 12 plus in analysis of my data. So they will not question about the biases. In a qualitative, you could use you analyze. Kasi pag pinakita mo na yung conduct alpha na 0.07, it means the acceptable reliability and validity test na yun eh. So they will ask you for conduct alpha. Ang pinaka-questions lang yan ay for qualitative. Replicability, if your research questions can be replicated in other communities and with the same study. Okay. So there are questions, especially if you're doing a longitudinal. I was invited before by I will not name a certain government agency. They wanted me to analyze the data, the project, evaluate the program. But they have given a different evaluation tool before and after 5 years, ibabaguhin nila. So sabi ko and it's supposed to be a longitudinal study. So if it's a longitudinal study, you need to stick with the variable and the indicator. And then secondly, nakita ko na they just got all the indicators from different sources. They have not done any qualitative study to back up the indicators or the the tools that they have included in their evaluation tool. So I told them, kaya na lang po, sige po, kahit po wala na po ako work, okay lang po kung ibigay yun lang sa iyo. Because at the end of the day, you'll see, you'll be presenting something that, you know, as a researcher, as an academic, have not gone through the rigor of research. So, okay naman tumanggi. It doesn't mean that you lose some financial side, but at the end of the day, you could feel that as an academic, I feel that I stood by with my principles and as an academic that should be gone through a rigor in the process before making those conclusions and findings. You need to build on previous studies. Always remember that sinasabi ko nga sa mga students sa inyo, papanaginipan niyo yung mga authors ng paper niyo. There are cases, if you ask this topic, and sabihin ng isang estudyante na, they will just mention law or something. No, it's not an academic paper. You need to cite studies, findings from the studies. Okay? Who are the main authors of that studies, of that findings? So, kailangan, kapag nag-propose ka ng topic, alam mo na yung mga key authors, and then key findings nila, whether they have done quali, quanti, or mixed method. Because you'll be an expert on this topic or this area. Okay. Only in the Philippines that you could see politicians were being interviewed with a certain policy proposal without any backup of a research study. Diba? Only in the Philippines that you could see, di ba yung mga white bird, hindi naman, may taga-Congress dito tsaka taga-Senate. Sa atin lang. Only in the Philippines that you could see that the policy proposal is just one pager. Why are you proposing this policy or two pager without backup of a strong research findings? In other countries, you have white paper, blue paper, the results of a longitudinal study suggest that dito wala eh. Okay? Even the main government programs that you have, you don't have those longitudinal studies. Identify and discuss methodological issues. What are the issues when you have chosen thematic versus interpretative phenomenological analysis versus grounded theory? What's the issues that you have chosen quantitative compared to a qualitative? Okay? What are the issues whether you have not done regression, but you just did ANOVA? Maybe you could argue that it's just one way to address my research problem. It's just limitation. Maybe in the next study will be certain in-depth analysis of that. What are the limitations? The importance of a methodology chapter, you have the intro. In article, we're talking the scope is an article, introduction. Always remember in an article, during an article, may prescribed number of words. Okay, you have introduction, and then methodology. What are your research aims? What are your questions? Usually in the methodology section of an article, for during an article, you put in your research objective. And how will you address this research objective? And detailed and justify your choices. Usually in article, they are given the limited number of words that you need to write. You just go straight. I did logistical regression in addressing the hypothesis. I did qualitative methodology using thematic analysis and using NVivo as a tool in analysis of data and addressing the problem. Okay, so and then always remember, in writing an article and writing the full paper, it's very different. Okay, your full PhD paper, your full master's paper, you could have a lot of articles, PB articles from that main paper. Okay, there are pitfalls in challenges natin. You wanted to fit in your one paper in one article. No, ang ginawa ko, may paper ako sa methodology, may paper ako sa introduction. Yung sa introduction ko, meta-analysis. May paper ako about differences ng male and female. May paper ako sa differences ng finance ko between rural and urban, may people ako about difference ng finance ko between old is old and young old. So there's a lot of studies and articles about it. And at the end of the day, if we're Abin, or you're doing postgrads here and masters, PhD, focus on the articles. Because there are cases, some of you are reading books, the whole books. And it will take 1 to 2 months and then hindi mo patapos. And then ang sa site mo lang naman pala sa libro na yun is just one paragraph of this specific chapter, this 200, 300 pages. You focus on the article. And there are cases you'll hear this researcher will just tell you, oh, according to this book, no. It could be different articles, different perspective from numerous articles. Doon mo nakikita na kapag yung kausap mo is just telling you, according to this book na 300 pages, ito yung sinasabi. Based on this book, you could see that hindi ganun ka-widen yung knowledge about the field of, about the area. Ano naman yung studies about it? So, for me, my advice for you if you're doing a PhD or master's, focus on the articles. And then focus on the journal articles that you wanted to submit your paper. Okay. What are your research philosophy? Are you constructivist, positivist? Underlying belief how data should be gathered and used. And what are the core studies? You need to understand which philosophy and why you choose it. Okay, and the positivism, interpretative, don't debate whether this is better than this. No. Always remember that the debate of whether positivist or interpretivism is the best will not give you any article at all. Focus on why have you chosen this philosophy compared to other philosophy. Even engineering, statisticians, and mathematics are now shifting into mixed method. They're now looking at qualitative study and analyzing those words. Could be social media analysis, big data analytics. Okay. So we in some of our social sciences should not be secured about I'm doing qualitative till the rest of my life. You need to improve. You need to adjust on the research problem that you're doing at the end of the day. Okay. Inductive, deductive. So this one. I will not discuss it with you. 7 key design research strategy. You have the case studies, the experiments. You do experiments, especially if it's quali. But you need to have a post test and pre-test. Whether your intervention will have different significant results. Have a case studies, ethnography, grounded theory, action research, and phenomenology. So I will not discuss it because you're an expert on it. Time horizon, cross-sectional or longitudinal. Pag sinabing cross-sectional research or survey, one point in time. For example, victims of disaster, Haiyan disaster. Okay, I'm just gonna do an interview and a mixed method study and a survey. We'll look at the WHO well-being nila. Adapting the WHO and we'll do a quality study. Cross-sectional, 1 point in time. Longitudinal, multiple points in time, maybe 3 years, 5 years, we go back and see respondents whether your project or your program have a significant effect. So make sure you need to use the same survey tool or the same questions that you have and the practical constraints. The probability and then probability something, availability something. Okay. Non-probability, so always it depends on the research aims and questions. What are the type of data? Design data that will be collecting your methodology always included. I'm doing a KII, FTDs, participants observation. How many? If you're doing surveys, how many respondents of your survey respondents? Whether you have done offline, lab equipment data, analytics data, secondary data. And always link your methodology section and the design choices to build. What are the type of study? You have the quality, quantity, what are the software that you have used? Always remember in a quantitative study, you only have descriptive and inferential. Okay, it could qualitative, it could be content, thematic, discourse analysis, grounded theory. So you need to include it in your methodology. Always remember that no research design is perfect. Discuss the trade-offs and why are you doing it. What are the sampling issues? Maybe based on my availability sampling, majority of respondents in my surveys are or in my interviews are those who are uh, living or not working and staying at home. Okay? Because those who are mother that are working doesn't have time to kumbaga, walang oras or because of their limitation, ang mga na-interview mo lang are those mothers who are free housewife. So you have not got the perspective of mother who are working and at the same time taking care of the children. They have not got the perspective or have not included the OFW mothers or the single parents. You need to be critical on the shortcomings of your study. Always remember that the outline, study limitations, and how you mitigate its impact, and how your study will address the gaps of the literature. As I mentioned, at the time, you only have to reason in doing the research. It's either you address the gaps of the literature or you contribute to knowledge. What are the 7 key design concluding summary? Avoid repetition. Okay. Always remember, in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, there are cases that people will tell you, oh, you have written it in chapter 1. Why are you now including it in chapter 2? Second, always do signposts. See chapter 1.2 about poverty indicators in the Philippines. Always do those signposts. Okay? Avoid repetition. Second, the logical sequence. There are cases na if you see in chapter 2.1, there's no connection with chapter 2.2. It's different topic. Always those have those sequence. And the something issues. What are the something issues? How many respondents? There are cases now. We end up doing we decided not to discontinue the interview when we reach around 35 respondents or KI because we feel na we went to the point of saturation. We cannot get any more data from the respondents. So initially we have targeted 50, but with around 35 respondents, we feel that we have already saturated data and we cannot get any more data from the interview. So we have discontinued the interview. So you need to discuss it with your reader. Okay. Time and budget constraints, representativeness. It means that this data will just represent, for example, those who are oldest old, but it does not represent those senior citizens who are 60 to 65 or young. Somehow, one of the challenges ng researcher, pag may findings ka sa isang area or sa isang community or sa isang age group, you will say that the findings are the same with all other age groups. So you need to be critical. Okay, on the shortcomings of your study. And always remember the outline study limitations, how you mitigate in high, and how did you address the gaps of the literature. Okay, I always tell my students to have the outline. Chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, and 4. Always remember that chapter 1 are from the secondary data, and chapter 2, which is the methodology. Chapter 3 are coming from the findings from the primary data. And the chapter 4 is the combination of your how did you address the gaps of the literature and how your findings contribute to knowledge. So it's a combination of your chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and now you will write your assertion in chapter 4 in analysis section. Okay. So you see the point, chapter 1, secondary data, chapter 2, coming from methodology, secondary data. Chapter 3 is the finding section. We're talking about article, we're not talking about the whole PhD or master paper. Chapter 3 is the finding section. What are the key findings from your KAI, FGD, or firm survey? The chapter 4 is your assertions, author's analysis on how did you address the gaps of the literature or how your research problem contributed to knowledge. With that, we end our training, and if we'll open we still have time for question and answers, Mark?
Yes, and the floor is now open for our open forum. If you have any questions, you may simply type in your questions in the chat box. Actually, sir, we already have few questions here, and it came from anonymous, so they want to ask a first question. Are there any additional tips or suggestions you can provide to ensure that the introduction and methodology sections of a research paper are cohesive and well structured?
Okay, is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
From anonymous.
well structured. First tip, develop an outline. Second tip, make sure in your outline there's no duplication of the subject matter. Third tip, always use signposts, especially if you're doing master's or PhD. So I see chapter 1.1 for the poverty. Okay. Fourth tip, always the logical sequence. Make sure that your paragraph and the succeeding paragraph have a connection in the sequence. Kasi before nasabihan ako ng professor, tumatalon yung argument kasi walang sequence. Sequence of events, right? For lawyers, they have a sequence of events na if they're writing a paper or something. From this time, ano yung sumunod na ginawa niya, from this 11 p.m., from this 11:30, from this 11. It's just like doing a phenomenology of events, chronology of events. Writing an article, you have, I mean, chronology and sequencing mo is not about patient time. It could be based on a certain timeline, just like from the first study about my topic is on 1970, highlighted my study name. It's a landmark study, a milestone study. And then we did this 20, there are some 1990, 2000, there's some evolution, these are the authors. So yun yung pag-discuss ng chronology about your proposal. And fifth is the importance of looking at whether your paragraph and the succeeding paragraph have a connection. I would suggest do a mind map every now and then. And before you start your research, always remember to consult your professor, advisor, and research critic and discuss with them your mind map and finalize your mind. Why? There are cases, if you will observe, that you will be having a meeting. O may papasok na isang research critic, ika-suggest na naman ng keywords or ng variable that he or she thinks is important. And then mababago na naman yung design mo. So that's the challenge in writing a paper. And that's also your challenge because mapoprolong yung paper mo in the sense na you cannot put everything in this one paper. And you could also say no that, sir, we had just agreed with the method, we just agreed with the keywords. We agree with the variables, we agree with the methodology in the first place. Why are we changing it? Because we wanted to be clear on it. So always remember one main suggestion na nakikita ko dito kasi in other countries, in the first step pa lang, approve in the research proposal pa lang, clear na yung keywords that you wanted to analyze, evaluate, or the research problem. And then, clear na rin sa critic mo, tsaka sa advisor mo, yung mind map mo, ito yung gagawin methodology mo, yung analysis, how will you analyze the data, how will you collect it. So you need to be clear on it in writing. And then at the end of the day, the one that will read your paper are not expert on the topic. So make sure that you need to explain to them what are the words or keywords that I've used that are not common knowledge. Okay? And always cite the author. And and given the chat GPT, you could especially if you read it, you will know whether it came from a chat GPT or something. So at the end of the day, uh, we're producing academic paper, and these academic papers are important in influencing policies and programs. Sad to say that most of the programs and policies that we have, if you ask about whether it's based on a longitudinal studies, uh, hanapan mo ng isang longitudinal study to support this policy proposal, you could see. So that's, and then if ever they will cite studies from Colombia, studies from Mexico, studies from that they think can be replicated. No, we need to develop our own studies because we have a different social demographic cultural context in the Philippines compared to other countries. Any questions? I hope I answered I've answered the questions.
Thank you, Sir Nicamil. Here's another question. How can a researcher ensure the validity and reliability of their research in the methodology section?
First, you could ensuring the validity reliability. If the scope is a quantitative, for example, the scope is a quantitative study, you look on back alpha, right? 0.06, 0.07 is acceptable validity reliability. The main challenge really is a qualitative study. We don't have conduct alpha in a qualitative study, right? Pag may conduct alpha in qualitative, mahirap. The three aspects in a qualitative study, always remember the trustworthiness of your data. Okay. Saan nanggaling yung teams na to? Kanina nanggaling? Sino nagsabi? Kaya napaka-importante in a qualitative study, you transcribe your data verbatim. There are cases na ang ginagawa nila, shortcut kayo. While during the interview, you just transcribe what you think is important. It's not coming from the data itself. It's coming from you already, your own biases. Kaya napaka-importante yung trustworthiness. Kasi pag nag-analyze ako ng qualitative findings, sinatanong ko, from your 10 respondents, ilan na nagsabi nitong teams na to? Ano yung mga supporting statements? Okay? Ito ba yung key major statements ng 10 respondents mo or sinabi mo lang, may na-attend na ako isang conference eh. Kasi sir, sinasabi po ng expert na to about this topic, ito kaya ito na po yung nalagay ko. Sabi ko naman, but you have 10 respondents in your KII. So it's not the main themes emerging from the data, but it's your own biases na as a researcher. We have our own biases at the end of the day, it's a reality. But you're an academic, okay? You're an academic. So our analysis will be based on data itself, whether it's good or bad. We need to inform the public about the findings, but be mindful that the important is the trustworthiness, the rigor of your study. Okay, what are the rigor of my study? I do pilot testing before doing a complete data gathering. The rigor, the quality, and the trustworthiness of your data. At the end of the day, that's the main question of a blind referee reviewer. So I make use to put in my methodology, I use MBBot 12 plus, MBBot 14 in the analysis of data. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, we do have from Sir Ray Medilla. So the question is, the introduction previews the entire paper, yet it has a tendency to be written too long. How long is ideally acceptable for a good introduction?
I would suggest, Sir Ray, you're better than me in writing. One paragraph. Ang ginagawa kong strategy ko in my introduction section in page 1, I have one paragraph, 3 to 4 sentences, where you capture and sell your idea to the audience. Kasi once they have read this first paragraph mo and then the second paragraph, kapag nakita lang very interesting yung topic, they will have interest to read the whole paper that you have. Kasi always remember, if you're doing a PhD or master's paper is around a minimum of 60 pages, minimum of 60,000 words to 65 to 70,000, depends on your university. But in Australia, you need to write around a minimum of 60,000 words and a minimum of 60 references. And a PhD is a minimum of 100,000 words, a minimum of 100 references. So usually kapag nag-evaluate ako ng paper, kapag nakita ko yung references mo, master's paper ka, bibigyan mo ako ng 15 to 20 references. Papakamot na lang ako ng ulo. And then, bibigyan ba kita ng MPM? Ganyan lang yung paper na isa-submit mo. Eh, it's supposed to be an MPM after your surname. It's supposed to be a PhD after your surname. So you see kasi ang unang tinitigan ko, to be honest, is the references. Pag nakita ko references mo is not even 30, I would doubt it. So ganun ko, kasi remember the garbage in, garbage out concept. You're supposed to be an expert on this topic. And then your references are just 20, 10, 30. Karamihan pa nun 8 policies and laws that are not even an academic paper. So nakita niya yung concept. So it's just one way. Speak to those fellow academics here. And then you're writing your signature in a master's or PhD paper. It's a privilege for us. Make sure that it's really one way to check those qualities. Keith, any more?
Sir, we have two more from Anonymous. So what are some effective ways to demonstrate the significance and value of my research in the introduction, particularly in terms of its contributions to the field?
Every now and then, it's difficult to put everything in just one. Kaya there is a section for your significance of your study. The introduction is just a general, it's just a general concept, your general vision about your paper that you wanted to send. All the nitty-gritty could be part of your significance of my study, to my field. For example, I'm a social worker by profession with contribution to successful aging in the field of social work, in the field of interactive social work, in the policies and program for older persons, in updating, in developing knowledge, in practicing with older people. So we need to be specific on the contributions of your study, but you cannot put it. The introduction section, you cannot put it just in the introduction section. Maybe you could highlight one general contribution to your study in the introduction section, but you cannot put everything in it. And then second, I would suggest you put the specific contributions in a section for significant contribution. Okay, you could just always say that my study could contribute in the development of knowledge in the field of management or education or public management. Or can we lagyan nyo ng konting libog naman kapag next. My study could address the issues and concerns of local government units in isolated communities, in isolated and depressed communities in terms of accessing knowledge. So this study will propose and then doon sa section mo for significant studies, what will be the specific significant contribution in the field of public management, in the field of local governance, in the field of maybe wanted to address the gaps in existing laws, existing programs of the government, or wanted to suggest a certain partnership. Okay? O, hindi na lang yan. Kung magkalagyan nyo ng konting libog kapag nagsulat kayo ng introduction. So yun ang unang tinitignan kasi, yun ang unang babasahin mo. Always remember that your reader are not an expert. At hindi lang sa atin, ako, dadayo magagandang study. Ang nagbabasa lang yung mga professors natin or critics, somehow di pa nababasa lahat. Your study was your main vision, your main goal of your study is for you to present it in a conference, is for you to publish it in an article. Okay? That's your main vision. You need to sell your idea. At the end of the day, pinaghirapan nyo na ng 2 taon yung master's, pinaghirapan nyo ng 5 or 6 na taon yung PhD. Give it all. At the end of the day, you need to be proud of it. And what we want is for you to publish it and for you to present it in international conferences. And we want your name to be immortalized forever. Hindi lang sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong. And that's one way to validate that you have contributed in the body of literature, that your paper have addressed the gaps of the literature. If we will publish it, participate and present it at a conference, so it will be a big leap sa university natin at sa profession natin.
All right, so let me just check. There you go. Last question. In terms of explaining the data analysis procedures and techniques in the methodology section, what are your best practices, sir?
Okay, best practices. Okay, first is, let's have a scope. Scope natin is journal article. Given the limitation ng words in an article, in your methodology section, just be straightforward. For example, I did a qualitative methodology utilize in addressing the research problem, and we have and through the help of and we have utilized NBO 12 Plus as a tool in the analysis of themes. Okay, so we have gathered around 40 respondents. You make it straightforward in an article. We're talking about the article. Make it sort of 45 respondents, 20 male, 25 female. So we did a qualitative study and then we utilized NBO 12 Plus as a tool in analysis of data. So it was go straight. Make it simple. Make it in a methodology, in a journal article, make it around 2 to 3 sentences because of the limited words. But in a PhD or master's thesis, you need to be specific on who are your respondents, what are the requirements, what are the sampling method you have used, where did you gather the data, how did you analyze the data. You could go as far as step-by-step process and analysis of data. Step 1, after transcribing, step 2, I inputted it in NBO. Step 3, I run the word search, text search, and these are the themes emerging. Step 4, we've done coding. From the coding, these are the findings. We identify the main themes. We do some statistical analysis on the words that has been used. So you need to be specific when you're writing the methodology section in a master's and PhD. So kung makita ko na yung specific step 1, step 2, doon na yung pinaka-specific mo, how did you arrive at this analysis? How did you use this method? Yes, any more questions?
Yes, I think we do have one more. Okay. In order to make a paper appealing internationally, should specific cultural context need to be explained in more general terms, understandable to world context? That's a question from Prof. Ray Medanilia. So in order to make a paper appealing internationally, should specific cultural context need to be explained in more general terms, understandable to world context?
Because if you're submitting a conference paper, always remember the scope and the limitation is the number of words. So basically, you could have one sentence about it. And then second is how to make it an appeal, how to make it to be appealing to international audience. Just tell them that you did primary data gathering for specific indigenous peoples in this community. Okay. And then second, because one thing is they will look into the methodology, whether you did a primary data or you just did the meta-analysis. Second, they will have more interest in accepting your paper if you did the primary data, if you have KII, FGDs, survey directly from the respondents. Thirdly is you need to argue that maybe it's one way to address the gaps of the literature, because most of the literatures they have did they have done meta-analysis of data. So this will also as- contribute in terms of knowing the data coming from the respondents themselves, or you could just focus on how your data, how your research could address the gaps of the literature. Kasi yung connection between the sociocultural context within the international context is more ano yan eh. So sobra na yung number of words kapag article. If you could put it in the introduction of your PhD or master's thesis as one or two sections, but don't for me don't avoid repetition for that one. Eh. Kasi somehow mag-fall tayo dun sa argument na yan. Eh. So make sure na you avoid repetition while on that, and make sure that make it a feeling. Just tell them that you that you have a primary data to show. Kasi that's the limitation of most studies in other countries. There are difficulties in getting primary data.
All right. So any more questions from our participants? If there's none, you may always send us an email for your questions. You may send it to research@umac.edu.ph, and also you may message us in our Facebook account. It's UMAC Center for University Research. So before we end our lecture for today, may we request everyone to please turn on their camera for our picture taking. There you go. So for us to see your beautiful faces. Okay, so we have 5 slides here. There. Again, we are requesting everyone to please turn on their camera for our picture taking. This for documentation purposes. There you go. So slide 1, please say cheese. Okay, slide 2. Okay, thank you. Slide 3. Okay, thank you. Slide 4. And slide 5. There you go. Thank you everyone for joining our session. And we hope that this lecture has provided you with valuable insights and practical tips on how to write compelling introductions and robust methodology sections. So if you have any further questions or follow-ups, please feel free to shoot us an email at research@umac.edu.ph. So good luck everyone with your research endeavors. And also, just want to remind everyone that we will be sending now the evaluation form link. You may click on the link for you to receive your certificates. We'll also post the QR code. It's on your screen now. You may grab it. You may capture it rather. You may capture now the QR code for the evaluation. Again, thank you everyone for your time. And also, sir, Sir Nicamil, you want to announce about the Wolfram. It's on the screen now.
Yes, University of Makati, the Wolfram Mathematica have given University of Makati free complete access to Wolfram Mathematica software for engineering statisticians physics, chemistry teachers, mathematics. So please download and use this Wolfram Mathematica software for your research, for your teaching, so for your data analysis. It's if we're talking about data, big data analytics, you really need to use softwares. Okay, we need to know how to use the softwares. I think I've attended the Mathematics Society of the Philippines, and one of the speaker will have told us that the main goal of a university is to teach their students to utilize the softwares. So for them to have those expertise, knowledge, and skills in terms of getting more employability opportunities in the Philippines outside the countries, is we need to teach our students how to use those softwares. Yeah, and even us, we need to upgrade ourselves in using those technology because we'll be left behind, especially those researchers. You need to ask yourself, why other universities, NUS and other universities in Malaysia have higher ranking? Why? In the methodology section, you could see most they have included they are including the use of softwares and analysis of data. So that's a big advantage of those universities compare us. But in terms of getting those data, getting those research, we have a lot of research gaps that we need to address here in the Philippines. Okay, we have we have a lot of opportunities to do more research. So imagine this: why does a foreign academic will partner with us to do research? Because here in our country, we could do primary data gathering. But so if you as a researcher, you have a big advantage to data gathering with our own community and share it to the whole world. But always be sure that you make use of the technology and the opportunities for us. And then we also have a free NBBA software. So you could download the NBBA software for qualitative and mixed method study and big data analytics, social media analysis, sentiment analysis. You have Wolfram Mathematica for computational learning model. For lastly, before 2 to 3 years ago, we're not talking about chat GPT. Right now you have chat GPT. It's a language learning model. Imagine this, if our students, it's one of the big challenges right now, siyempre in academic research. But in looking at the social cultural context in the Philippines, we could easily identify whether it comes from the chat GPT or whether it's based on the own analysis of the student or a researcher. But at the end of the day, we need to be updated with all the technologies, academic technologies. It's a challenge for all of us that our policies and programs should be based on rigorous research. And lastly is, please always follow the University of Makati research link. It's for free, guys. You don't need to pay anything just to just to attend this one. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Executive and Management Committee of University of Makati, our director, Director Rante, our team, very supportive. Mark, who else? Carl and Vincent. So I would like to thank them, the Center for University Research, University of Makati, for this opportunity to share my little knowledge to all of you guys. And download Wolfram Mathematica and download and
Thank you, Dr. Nicamil. And on behalf of our research director, Florante de los Santos, we would like to thank everyone, our 115 participants for today, and see you on our next session. Bye.